Why am I not getting callbacks? Am I applying to the wrong places? Is the market just trash right now? This is all possible. A CV is not a guarantee to a job, however, it does increase the odds in your favor, and that's all that this is about. And the best way to increase your odds is to get rid of things that decrease your odds. We have to stop doing worse before we can do better. The three main problems that I see on CVs that are easy to fix but pay dividends, and I'm going to explain why they're useful: not listing your skills, not putting metrics in your experience, and not painting a narrative. Now, before we get started, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I do this because I want to help, and I'm very happy that I can. However, it does take time out of my week, and I also pay an editor, which takes money out of my pocket. All I ask in return is if this content is useful to you, please just like it. Or even better, if you know someone this content would be useful for, send it to them. It's great because they get the benefit of learning something new, and it helps my life massively, so appreciate it. Not using keywords. The point of this particular thing is to think more about who your CV is for, who's going to read it. Now, you probably think lead developers, hiring manager, which to a degree is true, but every company really has some form of HR department or recruiter, and it's going through them before it hits the lead developer. You know, if you think lead developers are normally very in demand for the project that they're doing, they're expensive, you're not going to put them on the marketing and going through CVs. It's just not worth their time. So there's always going to be someone in front that's doing this, and then they pass the CVs to them. What that really means is your CV is initially going to be written by someone that does not know what you're talking about, like at all. They don't know the technologies. They're given a list of things to look for. Look for SQL, look for Node.js, look for TypeScript, and from there they're going to scan your CV and either say yes or no. So it's very important that you list these keywords and buzzwords in a super visible place. The test for this is it should be impossible to scan and not see them. So ideally you want them all together at the top, but if not, you know, put them in the experience, make sure that they're dotted around so it can be seen, and you just want it scannable, like bold them, whatever you need to do to make them obvious. Obviously, this does not guarantee success. However, it does get your foot in the door, because the first step of actually getting an interview is getting past the HR department that's gatekeeping the lead developer. Number two, not using metrics in your experience. So your CV will now be passed to someone either in the team, or HR is going to sit down probably with your CV and look over it. This is where we use metrics to add a benchmark, because if you just say I worked at X company doing X job, again, they don't really know what that means. Unless you work for a big company, if you work for the Googles, the Facebooks, the Net, great, you don't have to do all this really. You should, but you don't have to. But they have no idea what they're reading. Just another company, another job, another technology they don't get. However, if you say, oh, I decreased the code size by 20%, I increased the throughput speed by 2%, the click-through rate by 4%, they don't know some of these things and what they mean. However, they know that 4% is out of 100%, and it gives a benchmark. I know it might sound crazy, but in recruiters' heads, it adds a relevance to what you're doing, and it also shows you see the results as opposed to just the work, which makes you seem more autonomous over what you do. Obviously, don't fake it. These are the things you should actually be thinking about when you're at your job. If you're in a job to get experience for the next place, you should completely be thinking about what value can I add and how can I measure it so I can actually put it on my CV. But if you haven't done that before, just have a think back. What can you take? And this is how you should format your experience. Disclaimer over. In conclusion, the main benefit is a benchmark for the recruiter. They now kind of understand what your impact is, and also it shows where your priorities are. If they're looking at two CVs and one CV is saying, oh, I built a Node.js exclusive, blah, 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 cool. But then if you've got, I decreased the company code size by 20%, increased revenue by 3% for the quarter, it's so much easier to understand, and you look way more professional. And finally, number three, not painting a narrative. I will likely do a longer video on this later, but this was kind of sparked by a call that I had recently. So I jumped to the Zoom call with someone who's looking at CV, your portfolio review. He was applying for junior developer jobs, recently just graduated from university, great. He's a little bit older, so he had more diverse experience, okay, whatever. And I looked at his portfolio, all good. Then I looked at his CV, and he had metrics in the experience, which is great. You know, decreased project size by 20% as a web developer, freelancing, fantastic. I look lower, and there's copywriting, improved click-through rates by 20% over a 2-month period, and below that, completed a strategy which increased audience retention and reduced churn by 2%. Okay. And then I get to his summary, and it says aspiring web developer. I was like, you're not even a web developer. Like, you use web development to build digital experiences or create conversion funnels, whatever you want to brand it as, but you're selling yourself short just saying you're a developer. You're way more than that with your diverse skill set and the fact that you have measurables on these different things that you've done. Like, you're multifaceted. Calling yourself a developer is actually reductive. Companies love when developers are cross-skilled because you can work with different departments and it makes everyone's life easier. You'll notice if you ever work at a company and you got a dev team, if one of them is kind of savvy with design and good with it, the designers always go to that guy when they have changes. You'll notice, they'll talk to them. And I had this when I was a pretty little thing. I made sure that I would go to the QA to ask them before I put code through, hey, how does this work? What can I do to make it easier? And if they were having problems with other people on the team, they'd come to me and say, look, can you just go through this code? Because it keeps going through QA. But having someone that is interested in different areas, it's such a benefit to the company, and I promise you, you are a more desirable candidate. I said to him, if you're looking for a junior developer job, yeah, you got plenty of things to learn, so of course, you know, the best place to learn it is on the job, but find somewhere that's at least got like a proper product where you can get integrated in maybe the marketing side or the copywriting or these other areas. You can learn multiple things at the same time. You clearly have an appetite for it, and the more you can soak up about adjacent fields, I promise you it pays dividends in the future. One thing that I think I could have done a little bit better in my career is I used to think of specializing in a particular skill like an athlete. And I do think that people that take their craft seriously are like athletes, but instead of specializing in a skill, I think the world has kind of changed. The game's different. The modern world actually requires us to do other things. You can't capture your value the same way only doing one skill. You can become very well paid at this particular skill, but you can also only be leveraged by a company that has a built-up ecosystem around it to get the most out of your skill. Yes, my advice would be you want to learn development and you want to specialize, that's fine, but try to give it more broadly as a field. Is there a particular outcome you want? Some people just are so in love with design and building digital experiences. Is that something you can bring to your development? What twist can you put on it that's unique to you? Anyway, a little bit off topic, but very importantly, you actually consider what else you can bring to the table. So I think a lot of people do sell themselves short by saying I'm a developer, because there's probably a lot of other aspects to you that are interesting that you could bring in that are adjacent skills. Not only do they make you more desirable, but they make you stand out from the crowd. You've got something else to you. Hopefully that was useful. If you know someone that is currently looking for jobs, please send them this video. Let's turn those PDFs into interviews, guys. You got this.